If you're new to this channel, I would like you to know that none of these posters like to stay on the wall. So in my last video, I did my May wrap up, and I decided not to mention at the end of that video kind of my April versus May reading stats, which is something that I want to kind of start doing regardless. But I decided not to tack that on to the end of the May wrap-up video because it was getting kind of long. So instead I decided to do this video, which I'm hoping will be a fairly short video, where I can just kind of talk a little bit about my April reading versus my May reading stats. Now, the interesting thing about April versus May for me was I was doing a little bit of an experiment where I decided that in April I would read with a TBR. So at the beginning of the month, or kind of at the end of March, I decided on a TBR of about 9 books, I think it was, that I was going to try and read in the month of April. That ended up being a little bit ambitious. I think I only finished 6 books in April. So in April, I read with a TBR, and then I decided that in May I would try to read without a TBR, kind of like free read, mood reading, basically. So now I've got a little bit of data here that I'm going to go through to compare the 2 months. So the first metric that I've got here is pages read, and this is total number of pages with audiobooks. So if I listened to an audiobook on my library system, then I went to Goodreads and I found out how many pages the physical book was, and I added that kind of onto this number. So the total number of pages read in the month of April was 2,113 pages versus May's 1,742 pages. So in April, I ended up reading about 350-ish pages more than I did in May. So the equivalent of about 1 book, which makes a lot of sense because in April I read 6 books and then in May I read 5 books. Moving on, I've got kind of an average number of how many hours I listened to audiobooks in the month of April and the month of May. So in the month of April, I spent about 24.5 hours listening to audiobooks, whereas in May, I did about half of that. I've got 11.75 hours. The last little bit of data that I've got recorded here is days that I read or listened to books versus days that I just took completely off from reading. This was pretty comparable, so I feel pretty confident in comparing April to May because I did read, I did pick up books or audiobooks for about the same number of days in each month. Obviously, May is 1 day longer than April, so I had an extra day of reading there, but in both months, I ended up having about 7 days total where I just did not pick up a book at all. So yeah, pretty comparable on that front. So looking at the April versus May data, you can see that April turned out to be a little bit better of a reading month for me. So I got more pages read, I listened to audiobooks more, and the days that I read were the same as May, so that's not really a big deal. But in general, I got more reading done in April with the TBR versus May without the TBR. However, there are a couple of things that I want to mention here. One, I wouldn't say that finishing 1 book more or 350-ish pages more in 1 month versus another, I wouldn't say that that's a big enough difference to say that having a set TBR was the reason why I read more in April. Second thing, the most important thing about this whole experiment, the most important thing to me, certainly, was that I much preferred my May reading experience to my April reading experience. I think at the end of the day, it's just a matter of when I did my April TBR, I did an April TBR video, and I felt like I was held accountable to finishing all of the books that I had put in that video because people in the comments were saying oh, I'm really interested in your thoughts on this book, on that book, on whatever. So you kind of get it in your head that you have to finish the books that you said you would read. But it wasn't as enjoyable for me because I felt so much pressure to pick up one of the books that I had put on my TBR video. Crap. Hey, we're not broken. That always happens. I really need to stop doing that. So anyways, having a TBR is good in a way because it's a way for you to kind of make sure that you're reading a diverse cast of books, I guess. You can make sure that you're getting a little bit of nonfiction in. You can make sure you're getting a whole bunch of different genres in. You can make sure that you're getting a whole bunch of different books with different types of representation in. You can make sure that you're getting a good, well-rounded reading experience for a month when you do have a TBR. But for me personally, I think the pressure of having to only read the books that were on my TBR, it kind of just sparked a little bit of anxiety. Obviously, TBRs are they're not that serious. It's not that deep, Nicole, relax. So yeah, it was a little bit stressful in that sense. But then when I flip over to my May reading experience, I was really happy with my May reading experience. And also considering the fact that I get a lot of my books from my online library system. And I've explained this in the past. The online library system basically is when a book becomes available, it just automatically downloads to your system and you've got it for 2 weeks. At least for my system, it's 2 weeks. And if you've been waiting for a book for weeks and weeks and weeks or months and months and months, and then you get the book and you've got a set TBR, it's kind of like, ugh, I either mess up my TBR and read this book because I have it now, or I don't read the book and I miss out on it for more and more weeks. And it's kind of like, I know it's not that serious, I know it's not that deep, whatever, but when I look at my April experience versus my May experience, yes, I technically read more in April, but my May reading experience was just so much more of a positive experience for me because I got to read whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and I learned that I'm pretty much just like, I'm a mood reader. I have to read what I want when I want. Anyways, guys, I'm going to stop rambling. I have no idea if any of this makes sense. The magic of editing will have to figure it out for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do not hesitate to like and subscribe for future videos. Also, if you want to see more of me battling with these posters on my wall, definitely subscribe because the fight will not end. I have tried everything short of command strips on these things, and I don't want to invest in command strips for them because, like, that's pricey just to hold some paper on the wall. But it might come to that. And if you want to know how that saga ends, subscribe. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you think about this video, what you think about reading with a TBR versus without a TBR. Are you a mood reader, or do you kind of like having a list where you can like check off all the books on your list that you finish in the month? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye!